Hindu man asked Reverend Sam Shamoun about the concept of karma, and the reply of Brother Sam shocked the man. But there is more. The real question is, what does God mean by sowing and reaping here? Does God accept karma? How do you reply to the world which is pushing the concept of karma? Is it even valid? Is the concept of karma, is it even valid today? Let's first see the clips of Brother Sam, and then we'll see the truth from the Bible.
Hindu.
Oh, so you are a Hindu. Okay, come on, Hindu. What is it? What's your question now?
No, it's just I just want to know your interpretation when the Bible says you reap what you sow.
Yeah, it's not your satanic doctrine of karma. It's not about the just God punishing you or blessing you depending on how you live. So what's your next question? That's Galatians 6, 7 to 9. You don't read a passage out of context and read Hinduism into it.
Just so you understand, Brother Sam said the concept of karma is not from God. As according to karma in Hinduism, if a man does good deeds, then good things will happen to him. And if he does bad deeds, then God will send bad things to him. So as per this Hindu concept, if someone does only good, then only good should happen to him. But that's not something we see in real life. So let's see what does Bible really say about this in Galatians. In verse 7 it says, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." So if you just read this verse, only this verse, it seems like the concept of karma here, but it's not. Let's see the context here. So if you go back to some verses, if you go in verse 4, it says, "But let every man test his own work." So yes, Paul is definitely talking about works here. When he says whatsoever a man sows, he means whatsoever works a man does. Now let's see more. So after verse 7, Paul goes on saying, "For he that soweth to his flesh, of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting." And the word Spirit here in Greek is pneuma, which is used for the Spirit of God. Here Paul is talking about two places where one can sow or one can do his works. Either in his flesh, which means either in the natural or according to his natural mind, or to the Spirit, meaning according to the Spirit or as per the will of the Spirit of God. So Paul is making a clear distinction here. He's saying one person sows and does works according to his flesh, meaning works which mean okay to him in the natural or according to his own feelings, whereas there is another person who does works according to the Spirit of God. So he does works according to the will of the Spirit of God. This is different from what karma says, because karma only speaks of the natural. It says do good and good will happen, do bad and bad will happen. It involves works of the law. It involves trying to get good by works. It includes that. This is very important here. If you missed it, stop and rewind. Go back to the previous part and watch it again. Now Paul is saying here that a person who goes by his natural feelings in the flesh, in the natural, who goes by what seems good or bad to him, who sows to his flesh will reap corruption. And he says that another person who sows to the Spirit of God and goes by the will of the Spirit of God will always reap everlasting life. Consider, he is not saying if you do good then good will happen, but he is saying irrespective of what you do, whether it's good or bad, if you do it according to what you feel or according to your natural mind, then it's actually sowing in the flesh, because that's something you think is right. But in reality, something is right if God says it is right. Remember, the standards are set by God. God is the creator of all things. This universe, this life that you have, everything is created by God. He owns everything. So the rules of moral standards are set by God, not by man. Otherwise, every man will have their own respective rules, respective morals, which is not true in reality. In reality, the standards are set by God. Now coming back, if karma was valid, then Paul, when he was doing evil, when he was persecuting the church, when he was beating people, then bad should have happened to him. Because he was doing evil, so evil should have happened to him. But it didn't happen. On the other hand, he was prospering. He was prospering in persecuting the church. He was thinking that he was doing right, although in reality he was doing evil. And when later on Paul became a believer and he started to do real good, when he became a real good person, then many bad things happened to him. He was chained, he was beaten, he was persecuted. And this is exactly what you see nowadays also. In present time, if you observe, people who do bad seems to grow, but people who do good seems to suffer. So this means that the concept of karma, that if you do good, good will happen, if you do bad, bad will happen, is not really valid. So you see, Paul is not talking about making good or bad happen to you by your works. That's what the law says. Law focuses on works. A person who is focused on works is dominated by the law, is under the law. When he's trying to do good, to become a good person by his works, then he's working under the law. Now don't forget what Paul said in the previous chapter of Galatians 5. Everything that Paul is saying here in chapter 6 of Galatians, he is speaking in line, in context with what he already said in chapter 5 of Galatians. He said, if ye be led of the Spirit, ye are not under the law. Meaning if you do things, if your actions are led by the Spirit of God, then the law is not applicable to you. Do good to get good isn't valid to you. But at the same time, it does not mean that you are free to do evil. Because Paul goes on saying in verse 24, in the same chapter he says, and they that are Christ have crucified the flesh with the affections and lusts. So Paul is saying, don't depend on yourself. Don't depend on your natural mind, your flesh or your works. Don't depend on that. Because he says in verse 4, Christ is become of no effect unto you, whosoever of you are justified by the law, ye are fallen from grace. So when Paul says, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he reap also. He means that if a man listens to his flesh and lives by his natural feelings and does not listen to the Spirit of God, then he will reap corruption. He's not talking about getting things by your works. He's not saying that if you do good, good will happen to you. If you do bad, bad will happen to you. It's not saying that. On the other hand, like we saw earlier, he's saying irrespective of what you do, whether you do good or bad, if it's not as per the Spirit of God, it will always lead to corruption. Because in reality, that is only your opinion. If you're thinking you are doing good, that's only your opinion. It's your thinking, it's your flesh, not God. So dear brothers and sisters, stop depending on your works. Stop thinking naturally, based on your feelings. Don't go by what you think, go by what you know from God. And if you're a child of God, if you're born again, then deep inside you, deep down, you always know what is good and what is right. You'll always know that because God lives in you. Listen to the red light or the green light that comes in your heart. In moments, in situations, when you feel a sense of knowing, a sense of red light, to not go there, to not do it, to not say it, listen to it. It is from God. So finally, be blessed and please comment and let me know what do you think about this. What are your thoughts? And remember, at Avi, love values you.